Artificial intelligence isn't just evolving, it's racing ahead, and governments are scrambling to keep up. On today's episode of Data Life, we unpack the complicated and controversial state of AI regulation around the world. I am your host, Biodun Dare. Artificial intelligence now powers everything from chatbots and healthcare tools to facial recognition and predictive finance. It's a massive opportunity, but also presents a huge risk. Without regulation, the harms can be real: bias, lack of transparency, data exploitation, even threats to civil liberties and personal safety. Remember, OpenAI, for instance, is facing multiple lawsuits for allegedly aiding the suicide of some teenagers. But proponents also argue that too much regulation could stifle innovation, especially in a field that moves fast. So, where do we land? And how do regulators decide which AI tools deserve strict oversight versus those that should be left to grow freely? One of the biggest regulatory experiments in the world is happening in Europe, known as the EU AI Act, passed in 2024. Is the first law in the world that tries to regulate AI based on risk. High risk uses like AI in hiring, healthcare, or law enforcement face strong oversight, while low risk systems get fewer rules. But here's the huge update. In November 2025, the European Commission announced that it will delay some of the strictest high risk provisions until December 2027. Why, you may ask? Because big tech pushed back hard. Companies say the burden is too heavy, and the EU is trying to walk a fine line, protect people but not kill innovation. At the same time, the EU introduced a voluntary code of practice for general purpose AI covering transparency, copyright, and safety. But not everyone loves it. Meta has refused to sign, arguing that the code creates legal uncertainty and overregulation. Meanwhile, in the US, the regulatory scene is messier. There's no single AI law like the EU's. Instead, what you're seeing is a patchwork. In New York, lawmakers passed what is known as the RAISE Act, requiring frontier AI models to publish safety protocols and report incidents, while in California, the Transparency in Frontier AI Act now mandates that companies assess and publicly document the risk of their most powerful AI systems. At the same time, the US Senate rejected a proposed 10-year moratorium on states regulating AI, leaving more room for state level rules. In a twist of events, however, the debate over AI regulation has taken an unexpected and confrontational turn in the US. The Trump administration is reportedly considering legal action against individual states that try to pass their own AI laws. The argument from Washington is that AI is too national and too interconnected to be governed by a fragmented patchwork of state rules. They say California shouldn't have one standard and New York another, and yet Colorado another. According to federal officials, that kind of fragmentation could cripple innovation and push companies to move operations elsewhere. Here is the dilemma. On one side, regulation is absolutely necessary to protect people from data misuse, unsafe models, and discrimination. On the other side, AI is a generational innovation. If you overregulate too fast, you stand a risk of killing the engine of the next wave of growth. Which approach wins out? And what does that mean for ordinary users, businesses, and developers? Well, as they say, time will tell. So, what can we expect going forward in terms of AI regulation? 1. The EU Code of Practice. Will companies sign? Will it actually shift behavior? 2. Enforcement. The AI Act has fines up to 35 million euros or 7% of global turnover. 3. State level US laws. Will more states pass laws like in California or New York? 4. International treaties. Will frameworks like the Council of Europe's treaty actually shape how AI is developed around the world? 5. Regulatory learning. As AI changes fast, how will governments adapt their rules? Welcome to the news segment. Vodacom Group is in talks with the Kenyan government to acquire part of its stake in Safaricom, Africa's largest listed telecom company. Currently, Vodacom owns nearly 40% of the company and is exploring ways to increase its share by taking part of the government's 34% holding. While discussions are ongoing, no final decision has been made. Safaricom, the largest mobile provider in Kenya, with about two-thirds of the country's subscribers, has an estimated value of 1.1 trillion Kenyan shillings, about $8.9 billion. This makes it one of the most valuable companies in East Africa. The Kenyan government is considering selling a portion of its shares in Safaricom. This is because it wants to increase its income, handle growing debt, and reduce budget deficits. Google, through its charitable arm, google.org, has pledged 3 billion naira to Nigeria to accelerate the country's digital transformation. The funds will focus on artificial intelligence training and initiatives to enhance the safety of Nigeria's online environment. The announcement was made at a press conference in Lagos, where officials outlined a two-pronged strategy: developing advanced AI talent and improving cybersecurity. The fund will be distributed among five local organizations: Faith Foundation, African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, African Technology Forum, Junior Achievement Africa, and Cyber Safe Foundation. Each organization will be responsible for managing specific projects, including integrating AI courses into universities, organizing developer challenges, and implementing online safety programs for young people. Still staying with Google, the company has launched the Nano Banana Pro, a new image generation and editing model built on the reasoning power of Gemini 3 Pro. The model gives users more control over how their images look, whether they are designing posters, creating infographics, or editing photos with precise detail. The company claims that Nano Banana Pro is capable of handling tasks that older AI image tools struggled with, particularly generating clear and readable text within images. It also supports more complex scenes by allowing users to mix multiple reference photos to maintain consistency in characters or branding. Leading ride hailing companies, Uber and Bolt, have been ordered by the Kenyan transport authorities to implement a 50% increase on rides. This is according to an order by Kenya's Ministry for Roads and Transport, directing ride hailing companies to immediately adopt the pricing guidelines suggested by the Automobile Association of Kenya, AAK. Speaking about the new fares, Head of Licensing of the National Transport and Safety Authority, Yahya Ahmed, said increases are not new as the guidelines have been sent to the ride hailing companies since 2023. However, it had not been enforced because of the absence of a unified regulatory framework in the company. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company XAI is reportedly in advanced discussions to raise $15 billion in fresh equity funding. If completed, the deal could peg XAI's value at about $230 billion, nearly double its last disclosed valuation. The funding plan was laid out to investors by Jared Bitchell, Musk's longtime wealth manager. This suggests that Musk is preparing to scale XAI into a direct challenger to OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and other major AI developers. People familiar with the matter say talks with investors have accelerated in recent weeks. Key discussions are said to involve sovereign wealth funds, major institutional investors, and large tech focused venture firms. If completed, the raise will mark one of the largest single funding rounds for an AI startup to date. Meta has just wrapped up the core infrastructure for 2Africa, the subsea cable system it describes as the world's largest open access network. After nearly 6 years of work, the tech giant says the project's completion marks a defining moment for Africa's digital future and possibly the biggest connectivity upgrade the continent has ever seen. This comes about 2 months after the tech giant said its subsea cable was getting close to going live in September, with London, Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa first on the list. The cable, backed by a heavyweight consortium including MTN Global Connect, Vodacom, Vodafone, Orange, China Mobile International, and others, stretches 45,000 kilometers. It links Europe, the Middle East, and 16 African countries, landing in 46 locations globally. Meta says the system will deliver more capacity than all existing subsea cables serving Africa combined, with up to 180 terabytes per second on key routes. Two senior South Korean police officers have been formally indicted for allegedly accepting bribes from operators of an illegal cryptocurrency exchange. The companies are implicated in a sweeping money laundering operation tied to voice phishing scams in the country. According to a statement from the Suwon District Prosecutor's Official Criminal Division, the illicit network laundered roughly $186 million through illicit crypto conversion and cash to crypto shops. The first accused officer received roughly $59,000 between July 2022 and February 2024, while the second accused officer reportedly accepted about $7,500 in cash and luxury goods during the same period. Both have since been dismissed from their duties. Now go to the quiz of the day. True or false? The Trump administration has hinted that it may sue states that pass their own AI regulations, arguing that AI should be governed at the national level. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode, where we put the spotlight on AI regulation and its intricacies. Thanks for listening to Data Life. If you found this episode useful, click the like and subscribe button for more content. I am Biodun Dare, and until next time, keep decoding the data behind our lives.